You will hear a number of different recordings, and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 sections. Write all your answers in the listening question booklet. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now turn to section 1 on page 2 of your question booklet. Section 1. You will hear a woman telephoning a pharmacist about a program to help people with medication costs. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 6 on page 2. You will see that there is an example that has been done for you. On this occasion only, the conversation relating to this will be played first.
Good morning, Central Pharmacy. Tom speaking. How can I help you?
Oh, hello. I've just heard that there's a new government plan to help people with health problems to pay for medication. I wonder if you can tell me anything about it.
Yes, certainly. It's to help people buy drugs which have been prescribed by their doctor, and it's called the Prescription Drug Assistance, or the PDA for short.
The government has a new plan for medication, so plan has been written in the space. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 6.
Good morning, Central Pharmacy. Tom speaking. How can I help you?
Oh, hello. I've just heard that there's a new government plan to help people with health problems to pay for medication. I wonder if you can tell me anything about it.
Yes, certainly. It's to help people buy drugs which have been prescribed by their doctor, and it's called the Prescription Drug Assistance, or the PDA for short.
Please, can you give me some details? I'm hoping I might qualify.
Of course. It's aimed at people who don't have sufficient income to pay for all their drugs themselves.
I see. And are all medical conditions and prescriptions covered by this program?
No, not exactly. The government has created a list of all the drugs that they'll pay for, and not all drugs are included.
Are there any exceptions to this? I mean, is it possible that other drugs might be paid for in certain circumstances?
Yes, it's possible, but you'll have to ask your doctor about this.
Oh. Does the doctor need to obtain permission to include other drugs?
That's right.
How do I qualify for this?
Well, and I'm just looking on the website here, it says that applicants earning less than $25,000 a year will qualify.
Okay, so far so good. My income's well below that level. I heard you have to be a resident of the country, which I am. Is that right?
Yes, that's a requirement. And again, that's pretty reasonable. Then there's the question of age. If you're a senior, you aren't eligible either. Though, judging by your voice, I'm sure that doesn't apply to you.
Not for a few years yet. But why isn't that age group covered?
Because there's a separate plan for them.
Oh, I see. Let me think. Is there anything else I should know?
Well, the PDA is aimed at people with a permanent job. It doesn't apply if you're unemployed, for instance.
Okay.
And you can't have any kind of insurance to cover medical costs.
Well, that's all right. I haven't got any.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 7 to 10 on page 2. Now listen and answer questions 7 to 10.
Okay, so can you tell me how to go about applying for assistance?
This is where it gets very specific. You must provide identification, and it has to include your address, where you live at the moment, of course.
Sure.
As well as that, PDA applicants need to provide some kind of statement from their bank.
That's odd. Why does the government want that?
Well, the PDA is only for people who have worked for at least 2 years, and to be sure that's the case, they'll have to check that you've paid tax for that period.
Wow, it's pretty complicated. That's for sure.
There's quite a lot to take in, so there's a number you can call if you want to get more information and advice on your own situation.
Oh, that'd be useful. What's the number?
You can call 1-866-387-8392. The staff have been fully trained on the PDA, so they're much better qualified than I am to assist you.
You've been really helpful. Thank you so much.
No problem. Goodbye.
Bye.
That is the end of Section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to Section 2 on page 3. Section 2. You will hear a talk given to a group of tourists by the manager of a beach resort. First, you have some Section 2. You will hear a talk given to a group of tourists by the manager of a beach resort. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 17.
Welcome to Southern Wonders Beach Resort. I hope you had a pleasant journey getting here. And now, before you retire to your beachside accommodation, here's a little bit of information about the facilities and the surrounding area. You'll find the cottages are located right on the beach. As you walk into the cottages, on your left, there's a board with practical information about staying in the cottages. If you need any more information, please come and see us at the reception desk. Your membership card will give you free access to all our sporting equipment for snorkeling, tennis, windsurfing or water skiing. Just see Joe at the boat shed and he'll fit you out with all the right gear. But remember, if it's water skiing you're after, you'll need to book the night before. For golf enthusiasts, there's our 18-hole course, complete with man-made lake and waterfall. In addition, if tennis is your game, our coach from the States is on hand to give you personal tuition if you're on the tennis court by 8 a.m. Now, for those of you who are less sports-minded, but like the idea of a bit of an adventure, a trip to the limestone caves might be just the thing. These caves are extremely old and reveal fossilized remains dating back 35,000 years. I'm sure you'll be impressed by the way nature has created the stalactites and stalagmites over the years. A word of advice, though. You'll need to wear a safety helmet and some sensible shoes in order to go down into the caves, and it gets quite cold and damp down there. Helmets are issued when you buy a ticket, so you just need to remember to bring some safe, sturdy shoes. A sweatshirt might also be a good idea. As I said, it can get a little chilly inside the caves. For a family outing, the wildlife park attached to the resort is highly recommended. This is a place where all the family can enjoy the native flora and fauna close up. Little kids always love the animal feeding times, and they will have the chance to actually feed them themselves. The red kangaroo, which as you probably know is the largest of the marsupials, is actually taller than a person, and is capable of leaping 30 feet. That's about 10 meters in one single bound, so watch out. The park also includes a crocodile farm. It's one of the few places in the southern hemisphere where you can have your photo taken with a crocodile. Well, near a crocodile anyway, because the crocs are on the other side of the fence. Charlie, the biggest of the crocodiles, is well over 50 years old. They can live to a ripe old age.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 18 to 20 on page 4. Now listen and answer questions 18 to 20.
Finally, for the ultimate in relaxation, we do recommend you take a trip to the hills of the inland region to visit one of the farms or orchards. These farms provide 10% of Western Australia's primary exports, and because of the favourable geographical conditions and the talents of the farmers, they've become extremely successful in both the tourist and primary industries. Most farms extend hospitality to visitors by offering light meals and lunches, and if you like, you can go on a tour of a cider or cheese factory. That's always a very popular trip. And a local arts and craft industry has also sprung up, with some exhibitions being held in quite unusual environments. You might like to buy some of the pottery or items made from local wood. I'm sure you'd find they make a wonderful present for your friends back home. So, don't forget, come and see us at reception if you need any more information about the tours. That's all I want to say at this stage.
That is the end of Section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to Section 3 on page 5. Section 3. You will hear two business studies students called Lindsay and Ben discussing their internships, in which they worked for companies as part of their course. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25 on page 5.
Tell you.
Me too. How did your internship go?
It was brilliant. I worked in a big department store.
I thought you were going into your family business.
I decided I'd learn more in a company where I wasn't the boss's daughter. So I went to this store in my hometown. When I was in high school, I was a sales assistant there for a couple of summers. And I still knew some people there, so it was easy to set up. Our professor recommended working in a manufacturing company, and I contacted a couple of firms, but it came to nothing.
And did you learn much that helped with our classes?
Sure. There was a big problem while I was working there. Do you remember a massive advertising campaign for a new brand of sunglasses a few weeks ago?
Yeah?
Well, sales rocketed and we ran out. Customers started complaining, and I was asked to track down a supply. I had to call around the manufacturers and wholesalers until I could find a batch. I managed to find a local one, then we had to pay them up front as they weren't our usual supplier. But my boss was pretty pleased with me. We were only out of stock for a few hours in the end.
Great. So what was the best thing about your internship?
For one thing, my coworkers were very helpful. I learned a lot from them.
Mine were friendly enough, but I wouldn't say I picked up much from them. The only good thing about it was having to deal with issues that came up. Classes just don't prepare you for a lot of them.
Yeah, that's true. Like the fact that sometimes you have to do 2 or 3 things at the same time because they're all urgent.
That's right.
Anyway, how was your internship, Ben? You were with a garden furniture manufacturer, weren't you?
That's right. My experience wasn't very good, though. When I had an interview there a few months ago, they said I'd spend time in every section and sit in on meetings with clients, but hardly any of that happened. I was expected to spend most of my time filing papers and getting coffee for the managers. I was really annoyed. It wasn't even as though everyone was too busy to get their own coffee.
That's awful.
Yeah. Still, I got on okay with the other people there, so it wasn't as bad as it might have been.
I think the college should make sure students are placed in suitable companies for internships. Don't you?
Well, I like the current system, where we arrange the internship ourselves, and then the college comes in and formalizes the arrangement. But they need to spell out the purpose of the internship, and send the companies a list of their responsibilities. Too many businesses just think of us as free labor.
Yes, and it would be helpful if we had a couple of classes where we can learn about the company.
Oh, I think it's easy enough to research that on the internet.
Maybe.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at...
Were you the first intern they had from this college?
No, there's someone in the year above us who was there. I should have asked her about it before I went.
Well, I think the first step is to talk to her. Then you need to make some notes and discuss the problem with the professor. He can advise you whether or not to take it any further.
If I decide to take it further, I think I should then contact the company itself and find out if they have any feedback about my internship.
Yes, there may be a valid reason why it was so poor.
Maybe it makes more sense to write to the chief executive.
I wouldn't make it too formal at this stage. If the college makes a complaint, they'll write to the chief executive. I don't think you should.
Okay, so the person I had most contact with, my line manager?
That would be better. But if you're still not satisfied, contact whoever it is in the college who's in charge of our internships. It's the head of the department, isn't it?
It was, but the college appointed an internship program organizer last fall. I've got their name on some paperwork somewhere.
One other thing you might want to do after that is check the law on internships.
I'll talk to one of the college's student advisors in the department. She takes one of the same classes as me.
Okay, let's hope there isn't any trouble with that.
Biomass. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40 on page 7. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good afternoon, everyone. In this course, we've been discussing the principles of sustainable development, and now we're going to look at some of the ways in which these principles are being put into practice. Today, I'm going to talk about the use of biomass. And for those of you who don't know what biomass is, it's plant material, usually agricultural waste, such as sawdust or straw. And briquettes made out of biomass are used as fuel, either in the home or in industry. I'll start with the benefits. Using briquettes has a financial benefit because they make use of waste products as raw materials, so there isn't any cost involved for that. Another advantage is convenience. Handling briquettes is cleaner than handling materials like wood or charcoal. Also, briquettes are less trouble to store because they're a uniform size and shape. Right, let's look briefly now at how these briquettes are made. There are two basic methods of manufacture. The first method uses machinery. At the initial stage, all the loose plant material is ground into a powder and then mixed with other materials. Next, a machine compresses the biomass mixture, and that process raises the temperature and causes it to melt. The machine forces the biomass mixture out through rectangular or circular holes. Then, as the pressure decreases, the mixture cools and becomes solid again, and that's how the briquettes are formed. It's important to point out that with this method, electricity is essential to operate the machinery, and the exact amount you need depends on the type of biomass you use. But generally, the amount required is only 3% to 9% of the energy that's produced by the briquettes when they are burnt. The second method involves making briquettes by hand. This method is suitable when the biomass is mainly composed of material that doesn't melt, like paper. The biomass is made into a paste by adding water and, in addition, something sticky such as starch. This mixture is then shaped, using either a simple metal press or bare hands. So where is biomass fuel used, and how extensively? Well, it's difficult to obtain detailed figures, but it's been used for several years in Europe and the USA, mainly for agriculture. And since 2000, there's been a rapid increase in the production and use of briquettes made out of wood waste. I can give you a ballpark figure. In 2010, about 5 million tons were used in Europe. Some of these had to be imported from the USA. Moving further east, both India and China have been producing biomass briquettes since the 1990s. Detailed figures are hard to come by, but in China, in 2002, the number of factories producing biomass briquettes had increased to approximately 600, and production is still growing. I don't have information about Africa in general, but I can give you an example of one company in Uganda which is producing briquettes. Most of the company's customers are public institutions like schools and universities that provide hot meals for their students. The other main users are businesses that need a source of heat for producing their products. Okay, well, how viable are biomass fuels like these in economic terms, and what is likely to happen in the future? Well, the answer depends partly on the price of the fuels that they replace, and that varies from place to place. But in general, the demand for biomass fuels is almost certain to grow, and that can only benefit the environment. Let's turn now to another facet of system.
That is the end of section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers.